All right, Falcons fans. So I'm going to get a little objective in this specific episode. Don't worry, it's still slamming the Atlanta Falcons, but I do want to give you more of a numbers and analytical deep dive into this horrendous loss rather than just kind of the emotion and the feeling behind everything. Because I'm going to be completely honest with you, the loss does look 1,000 times worse than I originally thought. After going back and looking at some of the numbers and then taking away some of the things that are not only happening right now, but could happen in the near future, the Falcons look lost. And by the way, when Raheem or Zach get fired, I promise you, we will go live. So make sure you hit that bell notification, hit subscribe, and make sure you never ever miss the post that comes out that says, breaking news, one of them is fired. So how does it get worse for the Atlanta Falcons? Well, the first big takeaway of why I think it is 10 times worse is that, one, you're without Divine Diablo for quite some time, and him being gone hurts way more than I originally thought it was going to. And the reason I say that is because J.D. Bertrand, his replacement, sucks. Big mega booty cheeks. Now, here's one thing that I will say that I actually agreed with Raheem Morris on. This is like the lone thing in his last press conference that I was like, at least you have some awareness. He said, you're always going to miss those players, but nobody cares. It's always going to be the next man up mentality. Bingo. Nobody cares that Divine Diablo is not playing this specific week. We know he's on IR. We know he's not available. So who steps up to help get the Falcons the win? This guy? No, it's not him. And I know that everybody looks at PFF kind of like, well, is it an accurate indicator of how a player plays? Maybe not specifically 100%, but it does give you a nice, well-rounded bird's eye view of how a player stacks up with his contemporaries. That's how I view PFF. It doesn't tell the whole story, but it kind of gives a generalized summary. It's like the Spark Notes of the NFL. And what do the Spark Notes tell you from a 28.8 PFF grade? Bertrand stinks. Like, this guy sucks. And I take no pleasure in saying that. He's from Notre Dame, one of my favorite places on earth. It's like Disneyland for Moose. And this guy is ass, man. The numbers don't lie. While he might stack up a lot of tackles as a middle linebacker, which is kind of like what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to be a tackling machine. He's not a good player at the line of scrimmage. He's not a good pressure player. He's absolutely atrocious in pass coverage. And his PFF grade amongst his other contemporaries as backup linebackers is still subpar. So let me ask you this. For a guy who is touted as a smaller, faster linebacker, you can't be bad in coverage. And yet he's awful in coverage. He looked like a fifth grader playing football with high schoolers. It was actually hard to watch him play. He was getting cooked by the Miami Dolphins, man. Like, it was just hysterical to watch. Like, and not in a good way. I don't mean hysterical like, oh, that's cute. I mean, like, get this guy off the field. I'm not the only one that says that, by the way. You could go to Twitter right now and find a bunch of J.D. Bertrand clown tweets. But this specifically from Falcons Sports Illustrated kind of exactly caught what I believe every single Falcons fan thinks about this guy. J.D. Bertrand just can't be an every down linebacker for this team. He'll pile up the tackle numbers at his position, kind of like I said, but he was targeted early by the Dolphins in both the run and the pass, and the Falcons weren't selling out to stop the run, gambling that the Dolphins couldn't methodically move the ball down the field without a negative play. Well, they sure as shit proved you wrong, and you can't stop the run regardless, Raheem. So you've got a player like J.D. Bertrand who can't drop back in coverage. You're not playing the run, so you're letting him do the thing that he's already terrible at. Like, coaching is hard in the NFL. It is. It's not that hard, Raheem. Like, don't have a player that's notoriously bad at one thing do that one thing primarily for the entirety of the game. Simple. Simple. And again, if I go back to the run stuffing, the run defense, which I've told you is absolutely atrocious, The Falcons have a run stuff rate, meaning their defensive line stuffing you at the line of scrimmage, of 17.6%. That's 27th in the NFL. There are only a handful of teams that are worse against the run than the Atlanta Falcons. They don't have any physical presence in the middle of that defensive line. Yes, I've said they've got a really good scheme blitz package from Jeff Ulbrich, and I'll continue to say that the pass rush has been better this year than in years past. The secondary has been better than in years past, but they cannot stop the run, period. It's just every run is 5, 6, 7 yards over and over again. So Divine Diablo's presence over the middle of the field hurts tremendously. Here's the main subject I want to talk about on today's video. Terry Fontenot, he can't win. He cannot win. And I have so many statistics that will break this down for you coming up later on in the episode. Now, before I get into that, let me tell you about our friends over at Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. On Prize Picks, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose Flex Play, where you can get paid even in one of your picks misses. Even if you're one of your picks misses, And if you want the biggest payouts, go to the power play. No matter your play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the very test. I made a lineup for you guys. Check it out. This is for my Monday Night Football action. Patrick Mahomes, Terry McLaurin, and Travis Kelce all on the more. I'm a glutton, so I love to take it. Yours can look like this. They don't have to. All you got to do is download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It is good to be right. So Terry Fontenot has never had a winning season since he's taken over as the GM. Fun fact. I'm sure you knew that. And remember, this is not just a Terry Fontenot issue. This is an entire front office organizational issue. It's just absolutely awful. But Terry Fontenot specifically has had a lot of crazy headlines, even in the last calendar year. I'm not even going back to 2023. This is what's happened in 2024 up until this point in 2025. You fired Jimmy Lake after one season. You played 0 starters in the preseason. That's more of a Raheem Morris thing, but head honcho makes those decisions as well. You had the whole Ray McLeod situation. That was a disaster. You had the tampering with Kirk Cousins where you lost your 5th round pick. You then ended up paying Kirk Cousins all that money and drafted Michael Penix Jr. only to have Kirk Cousins sit on your bench and be a $27.5 million cap hit. You kept Kirk Cousins knowing that, and you fired Ike Hilliard. That's all in the last calendar year. This is organizational decay. This is rot from the inside up. It's hysterically bad. And ultimately, can you say the day-to-day decisions based off of the football operations are a Terry Fontenot problem? No, because Raheem Morris runs the X's and O's. But you are in charge of everything else. The drafting of the players, the paying of the players, the hiring of coaches. That is on you, Terry. And you're failing. You're failing. But like I said, it's not just Terry. It's Arthur Blank as well. You got to throw him into this because he is not without blame. For the win, nice little online blog that I like to read, which holds no punches. It goes straight for the jugular every single time. Said this specifically about Arthur Blank. Under Blank's recent watch, the Falcons have eroded into a shell of themselves. From the winning years of 2018 and 2012 to 2018, and the 2016 to 2017 playoff stretch. Losing that 2017 Super Bowl seems to have done irreparable damage to the Falcons' brain trust. You can say that again, which leads me to believe that my trust in the Atlanta Falcons front office is like a 10 out of 100. The only reason they're not at a 1 is because this last draft class looks like they've hit on a lot of players. James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker, Xavier Watts, Billy Bowman, all of them can play. All of them. But I'll ask you, and you let me know in the comment section down below what your view on this is. The final reason that it gets worse, and this is probably not something that Falcons fans want to hear, but you've got to talk about it regardless. Your future looks bleak in a lot of different areas, cap space wise, draft picks wise, coaching wise. I mean, it's just bad. Let's start with the draft that's coming up, because most bad teams in the NFL can look forward to this. If we sell off some capital, if we gain more draft picks, then we can start fresh and just accumulate a ton of players in the upcoming draft. At least that's something to look forward to. The Falcons have 5 draft picks in 2026 and no first rounder. None. Your first pick in the 2026 draft is going to be round 2. Right now, it would be pick 46. That's subject to change, obviously, but from where the Falcons are at right now. Here's another thing that you need to know when it comes to the paper, that dollar bill. Kirk Cousins is a guaranteed cut, so you're basically kind of admitting that this was one of the worst contracts that we've ever seen, because if you do cut Kirk Cousins in 2026, you end up saving about $35 million. So he's absolutely gone, which would bring up your projected cap space way higher. However, as of right now, the projected cap is $4.6 million in 2026. That's like 28th in the NFL for 2026. And the coaching carousel is low this year. There's a couple of good candidates, but none that I believe would actually want to take this job based off of the guys upstairs. Ask yourself, who's going to want it? Tell me, who's going to want it? Like, there is not a single really great Ben Johnson-like candidate out there this year that would ever consider coaching the Atlanta Falcons as long as that organizational rot continues to just breed. I mean, I wouldn't. There's a couple of guys there, some big names. Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator for the Bills, although he's regressed. Brian Flores is probably my top candidate right now. He's an absolute leader of men. But would he want this job? Would Klint Kubiak, the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks? How about Robert Saleh? Would he want this after going and coaching for the Jets? He knows what dysfunction looks like. And Matt Nagy, who, look, let's be honest, he'll take any job that he can get. But as far as like offensive minds go, he's kind of been carried by Andy Reid, don't you think? The Bears fired him. So there's no A-plus candidate outside of Brian Flores, and I'm not so sure that he'd be the one that says, let me take it over, guys. I'm ready. It's not good. It's not good. Who do you want as the next Falcons head coach? Because it's inevitable. Raheem Morris will not be here next year, at least in Moose's opinion. I really can't see how they bring him back unless they go on an absolute tear, but even then, the way that they're playing football right now, that's not going to happen. Either way, let me know in the comment section down below. That's going to do it for us on today's episode. I hope that I provided some clarity for you about where we're going, where we're at, and kind of how it's been. A little past, present, and future for you. That's all I got for you today. Rise up. I'll see you tomorrow. Be cool.